In this video, we're going to get started creating our enemies. The first enemy that we're going to get started with is our Moss Giant. So if you hop into your sprites folder, drop down your characters, you see here that we have a Moss Giant, a skeleton, and a spider. The first one that we're going to set up is our Moss Giant. So if you look in here, we're going to go to our idle animation, and this is what we're going to place into the scene. The first thing we need to do is we need to slice the animation. This is going to be a 512 by 512 sprite. So pixels per unit, set it to 512. Sprite mode is multiple. Open up the sprite editor, apply your settings. And we're going to slice by grid size. So slice by grid by cell size, 512 by 512. Hit slice. It's going to create individual boxes around each one and hit apply. When that's finished, we'll have all of our sprites, and we can grab the first element of our idle here and place him in the scene. So currently in our scene, let's find where our player is. And we'll go ahead and place this guy right here so he has this nice long path to walk along. So we're going to drag our Moss Giant, and we're going to plop him into the hierarchy view or the scene view. Doesn't really matter. Once you place him there, we want to make sure we can actually see him. So you need to change the order and layer to be 50, so he's in line with our player. All right, now that we can see him, you'll see here that he's a little small. So one of the things we want to do here is set his scale up to be about 4 by 4 and make him bigger. And let's just get a look at him in the game view here. So here's how he looks on a 1 by 1 scale. Very tiny. So go ahead and use a 4 by 4. And I'd say that's pretty good. Now compared to our player here, if we want to get a proportionate scale, we could even make him a little bit larger. So, and actually that's large enough, I think. So 4 by 4 looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and place him over here. Go ahead and position him by the rocks. Just like right here. So go ahead and position him so it looks like he's standing on the floor at about, I'd say, a 6 on the X, a negative 0.02 on the Y. So he's seated on the floor, and a 0 for Z. This is our Moss Giant. The next thing we need to do here is we need to actually create his idle animation. So we're going to take this Moss Giant, and we're going to rename him to Sprite. Very similar to how we set up our player, where we have our player main object, and then inside it we have our sprite, which is the character, followed by anything else it's going to have. Well, same deal for our enemies. So let's go ahead and create a new parent object by going to Control-Shift-N, go to Create Empty alternatively, and let's rename this to Moss Giant. This is our Moss Giant enemy. And let's actually go ahead and say Moss Giant underscore enemy so we know it's an enemy at first look. From here, set the position to 0, 0, 0. Take your sprite of the Moss Giant and place him inside here. Now that we have done that, we can select our sprite and let's zero the position out. Once we've done that, we're going to take our Moss Giant parent object and now place him back over to this area. And there we go. So now our Moss Giant is there. He's now seated on top of the floor. And once we add his colliders, and we may have to adjust it later through the sprite, but we'll get to that when that happens. The next thing we want to do is create his animation. So here we have our sprite. We're going to select it, go to the animation panel, and we're going to create a new animation. Go to create, and we're going to call this idle. And we're going to place this inside of sprites. We're going to go into characters, Moss Giant, and we're going to create an animations folder for the Moss Giant. Call it animations. Select that folder and save this idle animation out. Once we have the idle animation saved, we need to then populate it. Go into record mode, drag the idle animations from frame 0 to frame 44 inside of the animation view. Once you've done that, change the sample rate to 15, get out of record mode, and hit the play button to test it out. You'll see here that his animation is pretty much just looking around confused, and it looks pretty good. Go ahead and when you're happy, stop playing, save the scene. If you select your sprite for the Moss Giant, two things happened. You have your sprite here, as well as it automatically added an animator component with the controller. If you double click the controller, it will take you to the animator view, and we are ready to go. Automatically when the game starts, it's going to loop his idle position or his idle animation. And that concludes setting up our enemy for the idle animation. I'll see you guys in the next video.